If you're wondering what productivity has to do with retirement, that's the topic I'll be introducing today. When I talk about productivity in retirement, though, it's not the quantitative exercise that you may have encountered at work or studying economics. Instead, it's a mindset, and it may be the most important mindset you can have for a successful, fulfilling retirement. So I invite you to join me on my productive retirement journey. Many of us have worked 30, 40, 50 years or more before finally retiring, often at the expense of time that could have been spent with our family, our friends, or pursuing our personal passions. It's tempting to think that in retirement we can put all of that behind us, like closing a book on our professional lives and sitting it up on the shelf. I mean, that's the purpose of retirement, right? To finally be able to step back, relax, and spend time on those things that you truly enjoy. And that thinking is fine as far as it goes. But what about your goals during retirement? Have you given enough thought and consideration to them? And how do you plan to achieve those goals? I'm not suggesting that one needs to implement some burdensome formal process for developing goals and then meticulously monitoring one's productivity on a daily basis while in retirement. What I am suggesting, though, is that establishing goals is a critical element to a successful retirement, and a productive mindset is key in pursuing those goals, particularly when many of us will be faced with constraints during retirement. I plan to devote more time to the topic of developing goals in retirement in future videos, but for now, let's just keep it simple. If you're planning on retiring soon, or if you've just retired, you probably already have some sense of what you want to do in retirement. You know what your passions are, and you know which activities that you enjoy. You may look forward to traveling more, playing more golf, surfing every day, maybe taking up knitting, volunteering in the community, walking the grandchildren to school every morning. Or there may be some passion or hobby that you set aside when you became overwhelmed by work and family and is just waiting for you to take it back up again, like completing that great American novel that's sitting on your hard disk. These are all good starting points, but they're just that, starting points. Where you undertake these activities may also be an open question. You may simply want to live in the same home where you raised your family, or downsize a bit, but stay in the same neighborhood where you have an established network of friends, family, and medical care providers. Or maybe you're tired of the cold and you want to move to a warmer climate, Hawaii, Florida. Or you may want to move overseas in search of a lower cost of living and adventure. Maybe Portugal, maybe Costa Rica. Or as a friend of mine did, radically downsize, buy a van, and tour the US. Or, for some of you, you'll find yourself in unplanned circumstances and move somewhere like me to the Pacific Northwest. All of these are potential adventures in retirement. For now, though, I have a few suggestions for getting started in developing your goals in retirement. First, do not let this be an intimidating exercise. We've just discussed some of the starting points. This is not an exercise where you start with a blank sheet of paper. At the same time, I urge you to think outside of the box. Retirement frees up 40 hours a week or more, particularly if you include all of the mental overhead that you spent worrying about work when you weren't actually at work. In retirement, you have time to double down on your existing passions and to try new ones. Second, retirement is not a static experience, so expect your goals to change. If you're recently retired, for example, you may find that there are some things about work that you miss, and you may want to incorporate aspects of that into your plan. You may also find that there are activities that you look forward to in retirement, and they're still great, but they just don't fill your day. This is your opportunity to re-examine your assumptions about retirement. With that in mind, expect your goals to change, and that's okay. Remember, they're your goals. They exist to serve you. Now that we've begun to explore the topic of developing goals in retirement, I also think it's important to address the harsher realities or the constraints that we may face in retirement. First, not everyone is equally positioned for retirement. Some will be forced to retire early, maybe due to health issues, or maybe plant closures or layoffs forced their hand and now they're retired before they had planned. Some people will struggle financially throughout retirement, even working part-time jobs just to make ends meet. Some people will struggle with debilitating chronic illness, and some people will find that they're obligated to care for other family members in retirement. These obstacles are real, and I don't want to minimize or dismiss them by talking about retirement as though it were all unicorns and rainbows. Second, there are some people who will be well positioned for retirement. They may have good health, ample portfolios, and a solid network of friends and family. And they may find that their retirement is still derailed due to unforeseen circumstances, or they may languish in retirement for lack of vision and a solid plan. Your circumstances in retirement, though, do not alter the underlying challenge, and that is, how do you make the best of the years that you have left? How do you live your best retirement? So now let's address the notion of productivity. Productivity is often discussed as a measurement of efficiency. That is, units of output per unit of input. In a manufacturing environment, this could be the number of widgets assembled per man hour. In a call center, it may be the number of calls successfully handled per man hour. And of course, labor is not the only input that could be considered. But let's not go too far down this rabbit hole, as it's not particularly helpful in a retirement context. Indeed, this notion of productivity, that it has to do with getting more done, can be problematic. There's another definition of productivity, though, that focuses on the value of the output and not the volume. This may seem like a subtle distinction, but it's an important one. This broader definition asks that we maximize the value of our activities, particularly as they relate to our goals, compared to the resources that we use to conduct those activities, our time, our attention, and our money. This is not a quantitative exercise. We won't need to pull out an Excel spreadsheet, but we will need to use our best self-awareness and judgment to answer some harder questions. I'm not suggesting that we should overthink each decision, but retirement does provide us the opportunity to reflect on how best to achieve happiness and fulfillment in the time that we have left, particularly in light of our individual circumstances and constraints. Let me give you a more personal example. In my late 40s, I decided to learn how to surf. That would have been much easier had I done it in my mid-teens, but that wasn't an option. So I went out, I bought a board, I took some lessons, and then early every Saturday I went down to Huntington Beach or Seal Beach and met a friend of mine who was much more experienced as a surfer and free with guidance and advice. And we surfed till late morning. We did this year-round, every week, even in the winter when it was cold and saner people were inside. After a few years, I realized two things. First, I was a miserable surfer, and I wasn't likely to get much better without a lot more time in the water, maybe some additional lessons, and an upgraded board. Second, the vast majority of the joy that I experienced was not in the act of surfing itself, but the ritual that surrounded it. Getting up early Saturday morning, picking up coffee and a ham and cheese croissant on my way to the beach, sitting out in the lineup with my friend, enjoying just being in the ocean and watching the occasional dolphin. The broader crucial point here is that it is important to identify which aspects of our retirement activities truly make us happy, so that we can focus on those aspects while reducing or eliminating things that detract from our enjoyment. In my case, I gave up surfing, but I didn't give up going down to the beach early in the morning, at least once a week, and focusing on those aspects of being there that I truly enjoy. Though I discussed many of the constraints that we may face in retirement earlier in this video, I did not address the one constraint that we all share, and that should drive the urgency in how we think about retirement. That's the topic for my next video. Until then, take care and stay dry.